Good morning. Today's Thursday. Today we're learning the 10th Perek of Shabbos. We're almost halfway there. There's 24 Perakim in Shabbos, and we're already doing number 10. It's flying by. Baruch Hashem. Today's shiur sponsored Lilay Nishmas Aaron Nachman Simcha Akayin Nishma Mordechai Ben Sheftel Baruch Hashem Shmuel Levi Ben Moshe Ben Yosef Man and Shamas will have an aliyah and Fuah Shlema Adar Sar Bas Lev Chana Pesel Bas Yenta Yisrael Ben Rachel Rachel Bas Pesel Zelda Avram Yitzchak Ben Risha and Chaya Bas Doba Bela. Man and Shamas will have an aliyah. Sorry, Fuah Shlema Fuah Nefesh Fuah Sedub Besor Shachal Yisrael. They should all be better. That was a slip of the tongue. My bad. They should all have a refuah shlema mamish ben hashemayim. My apologies. And schus for Avid Aram ben Getamasha, the share for bracha v'atzlacha for him and his entire mishpacha. Okay. Not bad. Bad to make that kind of mistake. I feel terrible. Okay. Again, I'm gonna say this one more time because I gotta get this right the first time. Refuah Shlema for Ada Sar Bas Leah Chana Pesel Bas Yenta Yisrael Ben Rachaleah Racha Bas Pesel Zolda Avram Yitzchak Ben Risha Chaya Bas Dovet Bela Refuah Shenefesh Refuah Shenefesh Refuah Sakuf B'Sol Shar Chal Yisrael and the speedy recovery in Peri Aminu Mamish. Okay. Okay. Perek Yud Mishnah Aleph. So in Perek Zion, we spoke about a person not being chayiv for hotzah unless he carries out a certain amount of it. You know, whatever he's carrying has to be a certain required shiur. Otherwise, he's not chayiv for hotzah. And we continue that conversation for Perek's Prakim Zion Ches and Tes. And it defines each item and all the different minimum shiurim required to make the ister of hotzah on that item. So, this mission is going to be talking about someone who regards of a a quantity that is smaller than the standard minimum. I think we spoke about this once, that even though the shiur is X, if you are machshiv even half of X, then let's say the shiur is a kazayas, and you're machshiv even a little tiny speck, and you'll be chayiv. Then the person will be chayiv for that little tiny speck, where it will also be chayiv only for the kazayas, for example. So okay, so let's see. Hamatzniya, we're in Perek Yud Mishnah Aleph. Hamatzniya lezera uledugma ulerfua. If someone stored a small amount of seed, intending to plant it, or to show it as a sample to customers, or to use it as medicine, okay, yeah, samples. So let's see with Shabbos, they took it out on Shabbos into a Rishus HaRabim. Chayev b'kol he is chayev for transferring any amount, even a single seed, because by storing this is a tiny amount, he's showing that is chashuv to him, and therefore he's chayev for tzah, even though it's less than the regular amount. V'chol adam ein chayev alav el k'shiur, and any other person wouldn't be chayev, wouldn't be liable unless he takes out the standard minimum amount for that particular item. Likewise, if he changed his mind, he decided not to use it for the purpose he intended to, and then he brought it back into the Rishus Yachid, Eino chayiv el kishir. Then he's not chayiv unless he carries the standard minimum measure, because once he changes his mind, then the smaller amount is no longer significant. So he goes back to the standard measurement used by everyone else. Okay, Mishnah Beis. So what happens where the transfer so it's not completed in a single course of action, but it was interrupted in the middle. Let's see. Hamotzi ochlu v'nastan al ha'iskefa. If someone took food out of his house, which is a reshus hara, just a yachid, and placed it in front of his house on a porch, which is a karmelis, which is not a reshus hara, it's not a reshus yachid, it's a karmelis, it's in between stage. The karmelis is an air is it's like it's an in between place. Okay, so he puts it on the iskifa, which is like a porch. Bang shechazer. So whether he himself then transferred from the porch to the street, bang shosian acher, or whether someone else transferred it from the porch to the street, pater, he is pater from any penalty. He did not do his malacha of transferring in one stage, rather he did it in two stages. So if he took it from the house and put it on the porch and then put it down, and then he took it from the porch and put it down and brought it down to the street, which is Rishus Harabim, right? Then there's two separate parts. It did not go from the Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Harabim in one action. It was two actions there. Therefore, he is putter. Kupa shehi malaya peres and nasna al eskava chitzona. If one took a basket filled with produce from his house and placed it in front of the house on an outer porch, right, which has the status of a Rishus Harabim, but then he positioned the basket in such a way that part of it is still in his house, which is a Rishus Hayachin, and part of it is on the outer porch, which is a Rishus Harabim. Even though if most of the produce is in the basket is outside in the Rishus Harabim, Potter, he is Potter because he did not take the entire basket outside. Ad Shiotzi Eskol Hakupa, he is not chayav unless he takes the entire basket outside to the Rishus Harabim without leaving part of it inside. Mishnah Gimel, Hamotzi ben biyamino ben b'smal. If one transfers something either in his right hand or his left hand, b'socheko, or in the garment that is next to his chest, it was made in such a way that it could hold things between it and that person's chest, almost like a baby carrier. You get a baby carrier and it just with the baby, yeah, it's between, it's you can hold the baby over there. That's a say. Or something like front facing a backpack or something. Or al ksefo, or on his shoulder. Chayev, he is chayev because this is considered carrying in a normal way. Why? What's the proof of that? Shekain must have been kahas because the Torah shows us that the bnei kahas, when they carried the load of the Mishkan's vessels, they were carried by kahas and they were carried on the shoulder. The bnei kahas, which were three sons, it was, there were three chalakim to Levi: Gershon, Kahas, and Merari. So Kahas was responsible for carrying the Aron and the Midbar, the menorah, which is coming up to Chanukah. I'll talk about the menorah here. Very cool. Kisam Hashem. The Mizbeach Zahav and Mizbeach Achitzon, right? And when the Mishkan was packed up and it was transferred, they had the chiyuv, the privilege to carry all that stuff. Even though we know that the Aron carried itself, and carried the ones carrying it, but here you see that they were carrying things on their shoulders. Therefore, that becomes a normal way of carrying. Now continuing, however, one who transfers some. Is this crazy that we were just talking about the menorah, we're talking about the Mishkan, and coming up to Chanukah. They raised enough money from the Binyan HaMishkan to have it done, to have the money raised by Chanukah, but the Mishkan was, or they have it built by Chanukah, but they didn't inaugurated until Aleph Nisan. So here we are, just a few days before Hanukkah, and we're talking about the Mishkan and about the menorah. I think that's very cool. Okay, going back to the Mishnah. Kilach yado, however, one to transfer something in an unusual manner, like at the back of the hand. Beraglo, bepiv, marfko, no, or with his foot in his mouth, or in the crook of his elbow, like over here, this thing, um, in his ear or in his hair. So we're saying mouth, we're talking about items that are not food. Carrying food in one's mouth is considered normal, and one would be chayav doing so. Here we're talking about putting something else that's not food in any of these parts. A little bit pundaso lamata, or in his money belt with its opening facing down. Or between his money belt and his cloak, or in the hem at the bottom of his cloak, or in his shoe or in his sandal. In all the pater, in all these cases, he is pater, he is exempt. Because he did not transfer the item in the normal manner of those who transfer items. This is abnormal. No one in the right mind carries something by their elbow. Who does that? Maybe if you're shopping in the mall, you have a bunch of bags, so some of your bags will fall down. That's not normal, because who the heck is still shopping and shopping? That's not normal. But okay. Mishnah Dalit. Buy everything on Amazon. Buy in the shopping mall for. That's a joke. Okay. The next Mishnah, we're talking about Malachas Machsheves, about calculated labor, right? From which a person is chayiv for performing a malacha only if he intended to do it. Therefore, if he intended to do something that was permissible and accidentally did something that was usher, he is pater from any onish. Meaning that, let's say, for example, he picked up a vegetable from the ground thinking that it was already plucked, but in fact it was still attached to the ground, so he unwittingly committed the malacha of reaping. So this is called misasik. He committed an unwitting act. So let's see what's going on here. Mishnah Dal. If a person intends to transfer an item that's suspended in front of him, but before he completes the transfer, it slides around and goes behind him, he is pater from any onish, right? Because carrying an article in front of one's body is better than carrying it behind one's back, because one can more easily guard and protect that which is in front of him. Therefore, if he intends to carry something in front of him, but it shifts around to the back, the transfer is completed in a manner inferior to the one that he planned, and therefore he's pater from such malach, because it is not a calculated labor, it's not misasik. It's not malachas machshavas. However, in the opposite case, where he intends to transfer an item that's behind him, but before he completes it, he transfers it and slides it to the front of him, he is chayiv, since the resulting act is better than the one he intended. He is chayiv for it. The emes amru, however, in truth, they said, Ha'isha hachokeres b'sinar, if a woman wearing an underskirt transfers something that is attached to the skirt, they wear multiple layers, with sneas. So you're attaching something to the underlayers, which then gets attached to the outer layers. Yes, she's chayiv whether the item slides in front of her or behind her. This is because a woman knows that it is normal for an underskirt to turn around when she walks, and that anything attached will move with it. Since she knew that the item could move to the front or to the back, it was as though she intended to carry it out of position. Therefore, even if it was originally in the front of her and moved to the back, she cannot be put there from Onesh on the grounds that this was not her intent. Rabbi Yehuda says, Af mekabli piskin. Even those who receive royal letters to deliver are chayav for transferring, regardless of whether the tube that they came in slides in front or behind them. Okay, Mishnah Hey, two more to go. Hey and Vav. Hamotzi kigalushis harabim chayiv. Someone transfers a loaf of bread from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim is chayiv because he did the entire malacha himself. Hotziu shnayim, two people transferred together, both are pater because neither performed the entire malacha. Lo yachol echad hatzio. However, if one person cannot transfer, so let's say he's carrying out like a very large item, he's carrying out an appliance or a couch, it's way too heavy. But to do himself, and then two people transfer together because it takes two people to pick up a couch. That's the normal thing to do. Chayavim, they are both chayiv because in this case, each is viewed as having done the malacha. Because without the second guy, this wouldn't have been done. You need two guys to get it done in this case. Therefore, they're both chayiv. Rabbi Shimon Poter, Rabbi Shimon's Poter said as well, saying that the reality is that neither one of them did the malacha, and they are Poter on Shabbos. Hamotzi ochlin pachos mikashir b'chli. If wine transfers less than the minimum amount of food in that in the vessel transfers it in a vessel pater af alakli, then he is pater not only for carrying the food but even for carrying the actual vessel. Sheakli toilo, because the vessel is secondary to the food. Since he's using the container only to hold the food, it has no independent significance. You wouldn't just walk around all day with an empty container. The container is meant to be transporting or storing food inside of it. As hachai mita, likewise, if one transfers a live person on the bed, pater achalamita, he is exempt. He's pater for not only for carrying the person, but even for carrying the bed. Because the only reason why you're carrying the bed is for the person inside it. She'amita tveila, because the bed is secondary to the person. As hameis b'mita chai, but someone is transferring a mace, a corpse on the bed, he's chayiv, because the corpse does not carry itself. Therefore, you'll be chayiv on carrying the mace and the bed as well. V'chein k'zayis min mace, and the same halacha applies when one removes any item from this house in order to be rid of it, because it transfers tumah, including an olive's volume of a corpse. K'zayis min nevela, and an olive's volume of a dead animal. L'chadashim min asheretz, and a lentil's volume of the carcass of one of the 8 species of creeping animals. There's 8 types of shvatzim that transmit tumah when they're dead. Chayiv in all these cases. He is chayiv, even though his purpose was negative. Rabbi Shimon disagrees, and he says, and he paters one who transfers all or part of a dead person or animal from his house, because in his view, there is no liability taking something out of one's house only to be rid of it. Since the transfer is done for a purely negative purpose, it does not count as a malacha. Okay, Mishnah Vav, the last one for today. Hanotot siparno zubazu or b'shinov. If one removes his fingernails by pulling out one with the other or by biting them with his teeth. V'chein sharo v'chein shefamo V'chein zikno, or if one removes his hair, or the hair of his mustache, or the hair of his beard, by plucking it out with his hands. V'chein hagodeles, v'chein hakocheles, v'chein hapokeses. Or if a woman braids her hair, paints her eyes, or parts her hair. Rabbi Eliezer Mechayev, Rabbi Eliezer rules that the person is chayev for performing a deraisa malacha. Removing fingernails and hair are tolados of shearing, and you know, braiding and parting one's hair are tolados of building, and painting one's eyes is a tola of writing. Very interesting. Um, he says that just as someone who traces around letters is chayiv for writing, so even a woman who beautifies her eyes by painting around them with makeup is also chayiv. The Chachamim are shvus, but the Chachamim said that these actions are usher only by rabbinic decree, because removing a fingernail or a hair with one's hand or mouth is unusual. Braiding and parting one's hair are not derisive forms of building, and painting an eye is not a derisive form of writing. Nevertheless, all these actions are asur midrabanan. And finally, hatolish mi artis naku chayev, one who plucks a plant from a pot that has a hole in it is chayev for reaping, because the plant absorbs nourishment from the ground beneath it through the hole, which suffices for it to be considered attached to the ground. Since it's attached to the ground, plucking it is an act of reaping. Which the one who plucks a plant from a pot that does not have a hole in it is pater, because the plant was not attached to the ground when he plucked it. Rishiman pater bazeh bazeh. However, Rishiman rules that one who plucks a plant from a pot is exempt both in this case where the pot has a hole and in that case where it does not have a hole. According to Rishiman, a plant in any type of pot is not chayav derabanan, is not recognized. Sorry, a plant that's in any type of pot is not biblically recognized as attached to the ground. Therefore, he would not be chayav for it up on the rest of the level on Shabbos. Okay. Have a great day. We'll continue tomorrow with Perek Yud Aleph. Stay warm and safe.